very much rooted in community, it's rooted in the neighbourhood, but it's also rooted in early years practice. Yeah, so that's kind of a really important thing to remember for that for us. And in the mid-2000s, the Springfield Project, the church that then became the project, oh, I don't know, did you change something, Monica? I can't see my notes anymore.
I only started the recording. That's the only thing I did.
Okay.
I just started the recording, yep.
Okay.
Can you share your slide again? Is it okay now?
Great. Yeah, brilliant. So in the mid-2000s, we became a children's centre. And we still run a children's centre. We're now part of Birmingham Forward Steps, which is the early years health and wellbeing service for the city. We also run 2 nurseries, some adult focused activities, a place of welcome group, basic English classes, and a whole range of things that the community want and need, and that we can fund, and that we think fits well with our aims and our ethos. On a personal note, my background is in child protection social work, and I've always worked in the Sparkhill area. So this has very much been my patch throughout my working life. So 3 years ago, we decided that we wanted to start to do more stuff with children over 5. We were predominantly about early years, as I've mentioned. We were running holiday place schemes in the holidays, but that was proving to be a bit of a challenge because we didn't have that consistent team all year round, and we wanted to do more of that. We wanted to be better at it. We wanted something much more substantial, and we wanted to look at older children and young people as well. And that's when we came up with the concept of a child-friendly neighbourhood as an approach to us growing what we do with children over 5. And that started with some of our own kind of project reserves. And then we were very fortunate to get some funding through National Lottery Reaching Communities Fund, and we are now in the 3rd year of a 3-year programme funded by the National Lottery Reaching Communities, which is a lovely kind of fund to fall under. It's allowed us space and time to be very creative, to try things out and to figure out what works for us on a local level that's very much about our neighbourhood and our community and our children and young people. Very much rooted in offering a rich diet of play opportunities to children and young people, and building on the strengths of our community, the strengths of our neighbourhood and our people, and our own organisational strengths, particularly around the use of the arts and promoting use of outdoor spaces. There's a real kind of strong partnership approach to all of this. Everything that we're doing involves lots and lots of partners. Some of those are in the room, so thank you very much for being here. And we wouldn't have been able to kind of achieve what we have without all of those partners in the room, and of big statutory partners and very small local partners. And I really want to kind of celebrate the unsung heroes of Child Friendly Neighbourhoods, which I think are our Friends of Parks groups, Friends of Sparkhill Park and Sparkhill Litter Busters, probably kind of up the top of my list of partners. They're just out there making the space nicer for children and everybody in our community. So our inspiration for this work really started with this book, Urban Playground by Tim Gill. If you haven't come across Tim Gill, please do look it up. He's like the guru of all things to do with child-friendly planning. So lots and lots of ideas from that, lots of research from all around the world in that book. Urban 95 is another big inspiration, and that's a global network of people working in cities with children. And it's called Urban 95 because your average healthy 3-year-old is 95 centimetres tall. And their strapline is that cities that work for babies, children, and their caregivers work for everyone. And it's a really nice way of looking at the world. If you look at our neighbourhoods as though you were 95 centimetres tall, how would you approach it differently? How would you think about your neighbourhood? And some of these other City Eye Level, Bernd van Leer Foundation, again, they're looking at this type of work right around the world. And then, of course, there's the UNICEF Child Friendly City programme, which Birmingham has now signed up to and is part of. I'm not very up to date on where we're at with that. I'm not sure if there's anybody from that team in the room, but there's lots and lots of great information out there about what makes a child-friendly city, and how we can make changes at a local level to improve the child-friendliness of our cities. What we realised kind of very early on, though, a lot of this research, wonderful research, really valuable stuff, we're learning a lot from it, but it's very much kind of higher level infrastructure change, or it's about urban planning and development, which is, again, we've learned lots and lots from it. But as a grassroots community organisation with a relatively limited budget and a limited team, it was about how do we take that learning and look at building a child-friendly neighbourhood from the ground up. So that's where it all started from. For those of you that don't know, this is where Sparkhill appears in Birmingham, kind of South Birmingham. We learnt pretty early on that Sparkhill ward is much bigger than a neighbourhood. It's quite a large ward. It's got 5 primary schools and 1 senior school. It gives you a kind of sense of the scale of it. We quite like the idea of a 15-minute neighbourhood, and it's certainly bigger than that. If you can see on the map on the right, the 2 black buildings, they're our buildings that we operate out of, and the black tree is our Forest School site, and then the road up the middle is the Stratford Road. So really, most of our focus has been in that area. So we've been spending the last 2.5 years trying things out, testing things out, and coming up with a model that works really, really well for us. I think it would translate very well into other organisations as well. So that's the kind of model that I'm going to talk through with you to kind of show what it is that we've been doing. So this model that we've come up with has 3 main work streams. They all start with E to make it easier to remember them. The first one being engagement, most importantly, that the whole programme and our approach is based on children and young people as leaders, as owners of their space, owners of their neighbourhood, of competent people with opinions and views and voices and strengths and that they can bring to the table. Yeah, so as much as possible, it's about promoting the voices of children and young people and giving them the power to shape the programme. The second work stream is around the environment. So that's about what is it like to grow up in Sparkhill? What does it feel like to walk around the streets of Sparkhill? How do you feel in Sparkhill Park? What can we do to improve the physical environment of Sparkhill? And then the third work stream is around enrichment. And that for us is probably where we would more traditionally kind of sit. It's about service delivery. It's about providing children and young people with things to do. And we know there's always a lot of requests for more things to do outside of school for children and young people of all ages. So I'm going to talk you through those 3 different work streams that we've been following, just to tell you kind of the things that we've been doing. And what we're trying to do is get a real equal balance of those 3. So we could hold ourselves back from that instinct to just provide activities, to do provision, but hold back and make sure that we're addressing all of those 3 areas equally. So engagement. This is one of our girls holding a megaphone that was made at our Creative Families Festival last year, where the children were able to create artwork and write things, stick it on the megaphone, and then talk through that megaphone to say what it was that they wanted and what they were thinking, which was a really lovely activity. There's lots of models around children's voices and children's engagement. Child Friendly Cities one has a really good one. We like this one. We like the Lundy model of participation, particularly because it's been well researched in early years, and it can translate well to working with very young children, often pre-verbal children whose voices don't get heard in traditional ways. But it's helpful to have that kind of approach and to have a model behind what we do. So that's the one that we prefer. So in terms of engaging young people, with the kind of senior school age group, we were very thankful to Amy McLean and the Flourish team over in West Birmingham for allowing us to use their model around young people as community researchers. So we worked with Moseley School with a group of 6th formers, had them trained up as community researchers. And part of that training was they met with local councillors, they learned about local politics, about local power, they met with me and learned about how community organisations work, and they designed a questionnaire that they then went out and took out to their peers to find out the key questions around, what's it like to grow up in Sparkhill? What's good about Sparkhill? What do you not like about Sparkhill? What do you think a child-friendly neighbourhood looks like? What does that mean to you? What changes would you like to see in Sparkhill? And then they presented their findings and their report at the council house, which was a great experience for them to be in the kind of heart of local politics. And they got very invested in what they were doing and very interested in the work and wanted to stay with us. And so they then formed our youth advisory board. And as a youth advisory board, they've been helping to develop new activities. We've developed a girls group, which was designed by the girls in the group. They've read some funding applications, contributed to those funding applications to make sure that we were expressing their views well, but talking about them respectfully in a language that they felt represented them well. And they're working with us now to develop some plans for a series of community action days, which I'll come back to. One of our things that we've learned from this, though, is don't ever work with a group of young people who are all in the same year group, because they're now all doing their A-levels at the same time. So it's gone a little bit quiet on that front, but they will be coming back to us after their A-levels. And we're going to repeat that exercise with another group of young people. We will make sure they come from different year groups. We've now got 2 young people on our board of trustees at the Springfield Project, and 2 positions on the board of trustees restricted to young people, so that will carry on in future. And we have a youth volunteering programme, so we've got young people supporting in all sorts of different aspects of what we do at the Springfield Project, but also working with some partners such as Narthex, who run local food provision. And we're very keen on this concept of active citizenship. So it's not just volunteering, it's about creating opportunities, them thinking about what they can do to contribute to their neighbourhood. And here they are at the council house. They got to sit in the chamber and in the mayor's chair. It was a great, lovely experience. And it's just I'll give you a minute to just look at some of those comments from our young people. So in terms of the primary age group, we've done quite a range of things, more, age appropriately. It's a slightly different approach. We've run 2 photography projects with children from Springfield Primary Academy School, and that's been a great way of going about it, what's called kind of photo voice in that engagement space. And they've been learning about photography, but they've been doing that while walking around Sparkhill, photographing Sparkhill, talking about Sparkhill, talking about the different areas Sparkhill mean to them, how they make them feel, what they know about their neighbourhood, things that they might like to change about their neighbourhood. And that's a really great way of having conversations. And those photos are now on display all over our building. They're also on display in school. And there's quite a lot of them are scattered through this presentation, so you'll see quite a few of those. We've got a set of key questions that we ask everybody that comes to pretty much anything in any event in our building around what do you think, what's it like to grow up in Sparkhill? What do you like? What do you not like? What would you change? What do you think a child-friendly neighbourhood looks like? How can we change Sparkhill to feel more child-friendly? We have a weekly art club for primary age children, and a lot of their work is exploring that theme of the child-friendly neighbourhood. We have our annual Creative Families Festival and our October festivals, all themed around children's voices, celebrating children's voices. The last one hasn't come from the voice of children. Specifically, it's come from the voice of parents. So we've just recently launched a monthly SEND group on a Saturday morning for primary age children with SEND and their families. And that came out of a family voices consultation meeting with parents of children with SEND about a lack of places for them to go out of school time, where they feel comfortable, where their children are accepted, where they don't feel judged, and they're in a safe space where they know with other families that are having similar experiences. So in terms of what our children and young people have been saying to us, you'll see these word clouds, particularly on the left, is around questions around, do you feel safe in Sparkhill? Do you think Sparkhill is child friendly? And there's a mixture of answers. There are some positives in there. Lots of people like Sparkhill. They feel safe in Sparkhill. They feel respected in Sparkhill. They feel at home in Sparkhill. But there's also lots of challenges particularly around cleanliness, around litters, even pre-bin strike. This is all about litter. There's a massive problem in Sparkhill around litter. It's about feeling safe in public spaces, about there not being enough things to do. Parking is a massive problem. Traffic, volume of traffic on the Stratford Road, not feeling safe around the drivers in our local area. So things that are, I guess, unsurprising in a lot of kind of urban environments. And the workload on the right is about their suggestions of things that they would like to see, things that they feel would make the area more child-friendly, which of course are the converse of the things that they said were missing. So it's about having spaces where children and young people feel welcome and they feel safe, they feel accepted, that they've got things to do, that the area is safe, clean, green, they've got access to green spaces. Our young people said a lot of the similar things to the primary age children. They spoke very positively about feeling accepted. So all of our young people that took part in our community research and are on board or identify as Muslim, and they talk about the importance for them of feeling like it's a space where they are fully accepted in their faith, and that's for them is a really important thing, and they are aware that they may not get that in a different area, so that was a real kind of strength for them. And, you know, people are very attached to the Stratford Road. There's lots of issues with the Stratford Road, but actually it can be a great place to be. It's vibrant and colourful and all those things. Bear with me one sec. I've just realised that even though I am plugged in, I might run out. This seems to be working. Right, I think that plug socket is working. Yeah, a strong message from the teenagers particularly is about that sense of not feeling welcome in public space. So feeling like whenever there's a group of young people together, they're just innocently spending time together, that there seems to be a problem. And that's a common thing of teenagers. And you know, groups of teenagers are seen as a problem. And actually, teenagers hang out in public space. They should be able to. I did that as a young person. Don't remember ever being treated as a problem. So I think that's an issue for young people generally. This issue of safety in public space and feeling welcome in public space is very gendered. Our girls particularly don't feel safe in public spaces. They don't feel safe in the park for obvious reasons. And we know that there is less use of public space, less use of parks by girls than there are by boys. And I think that's something we all need to kind of look at collectively together. Some interesting stuff from the young people, girls, particularly around seating, that the seating in the park isn't designed for them to just hang out and have conversations with each other. Conversational seating was a kind of strong message from our girls. That's what they want in public space. That's what they want in parks. A lot of focus on parks and outdoor spaces are around sport. And not all the children and young people want sport. They want space. They want space to just be and exist. So interesting, the Tim Gill I mentioned right at the beginning, in his book, he says that if you ask children and young people these same questions all across the world, they will all come back with these key themes. They want to be in a neighbourhood that is safe, clean and green. And they want places where they can just be with their friends and that they feel welcome and they feel a sense that it's their neighbourhood and they're welcome to be there. We use the arts a lot at the Springfield Project as a kind of engagement tool. So for all sorts of reasons, it's a very valuable tool. It's great for all aspects of child development. The little girl at the top in the middle is painting one of our ceiling tiles. So in our art club, whenever a new child joins the art club, they get to paint a ceiling tile. And then they are scattered across our building is children's paintings in our ceiling tiles, which is lovely in terms of brightening the place up, but it also gives the children a sense that it is their space and that they're welcome there and they've been able to contribute to it. And the picture at the bottom is one of our many conversations about designing a neighbourhood and what would you like a neighbourhood to look like. So moving on to the enrichment strand, this is kind of a list of the things in the last year. We tried some other things in year one, some of which worked, some of which didn't work so well. The kind of after school activities stuff is interesting. In a Muslim area, a lot of kids obviously go to mosque school straight after school. So the need for activities after school is different. So how we might approach things slightly differently. At the heart of everything we do is, of course, our seedlings stay and play group, which happens 3 mornings a week. Over 500 children came to our stay and play group last year. We now also have our Butterfly Send stay and play group once a week. So some of these things are happening regularly. So the holiday play schemes are happening regularly. Art club is happening regularly. The Send Saturday group is now running monthly. Some of those other things are one-off events, but they're really valuable events. Community events are really, really important for bringing our community together. So it's really great to have that balance of regular activity and then one-off events. And in terms of the young people, I've talked about some of that already. And we've now got our girls group up and running. We want to do more in that youth space. So we're learning about that. We're getting some of our staff kind of trained up to work in that space. And we're looking for additional funding to bring in to the programme so that we can expand what we're doing in that youth space. We've having a core team in place through our Reach Communities funding has been brilliant, because it means that we can then bring in extra money that can contribute to that core offer. So it's got a small team. We've got 3 people who are all working part-time. That's our core team. And then we have some sessional staff that come in for events and play schemes. But one of the additional activities we've been able to bring in is a Children's Heritage Project funded by National Lottery Heritage Fund, which is about looking at Sparkhill through the eyes of children throughout history. And that's been wonderful. It started, we started kind of in the Christmas holidays. We've had Mrs. History, some children's history experts, researching Sparkhill, and at Christmas they took our play scheme children out on heritage walks where they learned about history of Sparkhill. They came back absolutely buzzing with pride about Sparkhill. I think they'd never really thought of Sparkhill as somewhere that was interesting or had history or heritage before, so that's great. We've just appointed 3 creative practitioners, and we're going to work with 3 different groups, add 2 play schemes on our art club to produce some visual artwork based on the heritage of Sparkhill, which will then be eventually displayed permanently in Sparkhill. Before it gets permanently displayed in Sparkhill, it's going to be displayed at the museum and art gallery in their community gallery, which is a great experience for the children to be able to have their work displayed in BMAG. It's also funding some heritage trips. And in October, we are going to have a festival of Sparkhill, which kind of showcases lots of our work, but with that particular heritage focus. The children are also going to be involved in some intergenerational interviewing, meeting older people that grew up in Sparkhill, so they can learn directly from other people what Sparkhill was like in the past. And then the third strand is the environment one. I think this has perhaps been the most interesting one for us, and that it was very new to us. We're very keen. We've always been very keen on getting children outside and playing outside as much as possible, but we haven't ever really looked at Sparkhill as a physical environment, as something that we should be thinking about beyond our buildings and our spaces. There's so much research out there around children's spaces, children in public spaces, children's geography. I've learned lots of new terms around children's geography and spatial justice and things I didn't know existed. And this is going to be a real strong focus for us in year 3. We've done lots of learning. We've come up with lots of kind of ideas around this, but it's perhaps also one of the hardest areas to progress, but we're really committed to doing that. I'm just going to come back to Tim Gill again in terms of this thinking about the environment and children's geography. This is from his book, and you'll see this is 4 generations of a family and how far children were allowed to go. So in 1919, pretty unlimited, great-granddad could walk for 6 miles unsupervised. By 1950, that has shrunk to about a mile. 1979, the mum was able to go about half a mile from the house unsupervised. By 2007, this child was only going to the end of the road, so 300 metres away. Yeah, so their freedom had been curtailed massively. And if you think about how the world has changed since 2007, for some of our children, young people, it'll be even smaller than that. And we have an unprecedented situation with young people who now don't necessarily want to go outside, because the online world is so appealing and the world has changed a lot around them, that we're now having to work harder to get children and young people to want to go outside. So that's a real kind of pressure on us to make sure that they do have that access. And this is another, again, picture from Tim Gill's book. And you'll see the picture on the left is a drawing of a neighbourhood by a child who walks to school, so is regularly out physically in the environment, walking, so moving at that walking pace through their space. And you'll see how rich that experience is what that picture shows. They see the interconnectedness of the spaces, of the buildings, of the roads, of nature. The picture on the right, of course, is a child that only is driven to school, so sees their world as, it's a tick list of things that they know exist in their neighbourhood, but there's not a relationship between them. There's no warmth there. There's no sense of that being a neighbourhood where it feels like home. So I think that's quite a telling picture about the value of children being physically outside and in their neighbourhood. So we have a whole strategy around what we call our environment strand that's looking about outdoor play. It's looking about developing a love of the environment in children, but also getting them championing kind of the environmental agenda more broadly. It's about making those physical improvements in public spaces, and it's about mapping Sparkhill, so working with children and young people to see Sparkhill through their eyes, and then turning that into maps that families can use about how to find spaces for children and young people. One of the things that we are going to be doing over this summer is we've got some additional funding in from West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner to develop our youth volunteering offer to include a series of community action days. So our young people will be getting out into Sparkhill, finding those areas. They're called residual areas, apparently. They're those kind of areas of streets that nobody looks after, nobody cares about. They get full of litter, they might be subject to graffiti, other things, and kind of claiming them some of those spaces. It may be planting things, it may be painting things, but it's about giving them that kind of ownership to help improve the physical environment of Sparkhill. And it kind of all fits together really, really nicely, because on one of our forest school sites we have an Anderson shelter. So that's part of Sparkhill's heritage. So they're going to renovate that Anderson shelter so that it looks like it would have looked during the year. So when our local primary school children are learning about Second World War and being in an Anderson shelter, they can do it in space that's been worked on by our teenagers. Yeah, so we have now an annual Growing Up Green festival, which has happened in Sparkhill Park last summer. We had over 600 people coming, and it's happening again on the 14th of June. If you're around, do pop over to Sparkhill Park and joining our Growing Up Green festival. We have two forest school sites. One is in the grounds of one of our nurseries, which that's Park Road, so that's a kind of closed space, although we use it for our play schemes and other events as well. Our other forest school site is actually in the grounds of Knoll Road allotments, and I'll highlight that particularly, just thinking from a kind of asset-based perspective. So obviously the allotments are owned by the council. We used to run an allotment kind of growing programme, which we couldn't sustain, but there was a piece of essentially derelict land at one end of the allotment that couldn't be used for growing. Nothing was happening on it, so they agreed that we could have it and turn it into a forest school space. So we've had that space for quite a long time, and various levels of usage, and more recently we haven't been using it that much. Eco Birmingham are a really key part of our wider team, a really strong partnership there. They've been helping us to kind of make best use of that space, so they're now running a weekly forest school group for homeschooled children. Next week, very excited, we've got our first evening forest school session where we're going to hopefully see some bats. And we've now most recently kind of got our Springfield Primary Academy has just been renovated, and their outdoor space has no grass. They have concrete and astroturf and no nature at all. So they're going to be using our forest school space 3 days a week going forward. So that's kind of really lovely outcome of the conversations that have come about because of this. So that's the kind of what we've been doing. I'm just going to focus a little bit on why I think play is at the heart of all of this, and why it's so important, and why I think it needs to be really high in the public health agenda. And obviously some of you are from public health, so I want you to kind of get that message. Play is fundamental to childhood. It is how children learn. It's how children develop. It's the universal language of childhood. Yeah, but we know that access to play, access to free unstructured play particularly, has really, really diminished in recent decades. We've seen the map of how kind of children's movement has decreased. But a lot of the play that is out there is structured, and there's nothing wrong with structured play. Of course, we want children to have access to sports clubs and arts activities and all of those things. But actually children's imaginations, cognitive development, physical development, how they learn about the world, really comes about through unstructured play. And that's really, really strong in early years. There's a lot that we can learn in early years that we can apply to older children. But is that children to having the freedom to just be children and not have to take part in something else that somebody else has put on? Yeah, to learn to think for themselves, to act for themselves, to become autonomous people in their own right, shaped by their own experiences. We know that our cities weren't designed for children. They weren't designed for the volume of people that we have, the traffic that we have these days. Sparkhill is a kind of Victorian terrace houses predominantly. It's not designed for children the way that we are now. And we know that even in modern and buildings, that more time is given to wildlife than it is thinking about children in terms of what children need in neighbourhoods. So there's a lot that we need to do. What often happens in all of our worlds, I think, is that we have a really strong focus on the most vulnerable children. So when we talk about young people in Birmingham, we often talk about knife crime, we talk about gangs, we talk about all those things. Our approach is very much about having a universal offer for all children. And if that's really missing, I think, from the kind of play youth space at the moment, it's something we really need to think about. Think about early years. I talked about the importance of community stay and plays to us as an organisation, but we have Early Years Alliance, I think, are in the room. Welcome. As Birmingham Forward Steps, we work with Early Years Alliance to support all of the community-run stay and play groups that happen across the city. So these are community groups, often led by volunteers, set up by parents when they wanted somewhere to go with their own children, in churches or other kind of faith or community venues. And so they're not costing the public purse anything. These are community-run activities. There are, at the last count, there were 198 community stay and play sessions a week running across the city, which is a huge number, serving thousands of families. If, as Birmingham Forward Steps, we were to run that volume of work with a paid workforce, that would cost almost £3 million. Yeah. Early Years Alliance get less than 0.5% of that to provide some support to those groups, to map those groups, to make sure that they are connected into the wider children's system. But yeah, I think that demonstrates the real value of the community sector in this space. All right, I'm just conscious of time. I'm going to move on. You may know that there is a National Play Commission happening. There was an update report in Parliament yesterday. Play England launched their 10-year play strategy yesterday, again in Parliament. And also yesterday was the day, talking about play, they also announced that there will be an all-party parliamentary group on play has been formed. So the final report of the Play Commission is due out in June. So this is all quite timely. A lot of it has come from this book, Raising the Nation by Paul Lindley, which is a great read. I recommend that one. And there's lots of stuff going on, in other places that I think we can learn a lot from. Leeds, there's a lot of great work going on in Leeds. They've got their own Child Friendly Leeds programme that is not, if I understand it right, it's not the UNICEF programme. They've developed their own programme. Wales is a really interesting place to look at. They're kind of far ahead of us. They've got a real kind of comprehensive approach to play sufficiency. They've got their Future Generations Act, which means that they have to think differently. But I'm going to talk about some local groups as well. Some of those are here. Parakeets is a key part of our steering group and our work. They provide a lot of support for us, and they're actually Sandwell based, but work across Birmingham as well. Real kind of expertise around play and childhood development. Also, they're also part of OPAL. You might be aware of it. I can't remember what it stands for, but it's about getting more quality play into schools. I'm not going to talk about schools, that's a whole other topic, but there's a lot of work going on to improve the play that children take part in school. Rome is an organisation that I only met just last week. I think Naomi's here. And they're a Birmingham-based small organisation. Their focus is on giving children the opportunities to have unsupervised play, which, as a parent is a challenge that we all face, isn't it? Of how do we let our children have those freedom, or how to be unsupervised, but in a safe way. And so they're doing some really interesting stuff in local parks. This is around creating opportunities for children to have that freedom to be unsupervised. Birmingham Play Care Network do lots and lots of stuff around all aspects of play, but with particular focus at the moment around aspects of poverty, and they run the Birmingham Scraps store over in Franklin. And the Glue Collective, so that black circle there, growing and learning in urban environments, do some fabulous stuff around children in outdoor spaces, using the arts and children as a kind of competent members of society, giving them those spaces to learn and express themselves in outdoor spaces. The other organisations there are kind of national ones. Playful Anywhere are based in Yorkshire. They're very involved in the Leeds strategy street space, also based in Yorkshire. Really interesting stuff around public space, making public spaces more child friendly. And Make Space for Girls is really doing really interesting stuff around girls in public space. There's some really important stuff there. I'm going to skip through that. I'm just conscious of time. So yeah, there's lots and lots of people working in this space, and lots of people who, you know, in all of those different areas that I've looked at, probably have a lot more kind of expertise than we do. But this is what we've done in Sparkhill. This is the journey that we've been on to think about how do we create a more child-friendly neighbourhood in Sparkhill, and the model that we've come up with. So for us, we want to, you know, we've learnt loads, but we know that we're barely scratching the surface. So we really want to carry on with doing what we're doing, dig deeper into Sparkhill to make some of those improvements in Sparkhill, to make sure our children and young people are getting the things that they're saying that they want, and they are helping to make that happen. We're also looking at developing a toolkit that we can share with other people. And some of you will have some brilliant examples I know that you can add to that. For us, it's about the role of communities themselves, community organisations, in creating child-friendly neighbourhoods. It's not about waiting for the, you know, local authorities or whoever else it is to make this happen. That's not how the world works anymore. If it ever did, it's certainly not how things work at the moment. This is about neighbourhood level action. But we also really want to open up this conversation with public health and other statutory partners around play, around universal provision, and around children in public space, which is why we're kind of in this kind of hopefully starting that conversation today. So thank you very much. I've raced through that very quickly because there's quite a lot to say, but I do really want to make sure that we've got time for any kind of questions or comments for yourself. So I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you. I'm not sure if there's any. Monica, you've been looking in the chat to see if there are any questions. Are there any questions in there yet? Or
not yet.
No. So please do feel free to raise your hand, ask any questions that you've got, any comments that you've got. Some of the organisations that I've mentioned are, I know, in the chat. So if you want to drop your kind of details in the chat so people can follow up with you directly. Thank you, Natalie, for that comment. I'm glad it was interesting and that we can share it with students. Very keen to share the thinking and the model and the learning with other organisations. Any other questions? Thanks, Naomi. Amreen, did you want to come in?
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so I am new here. I'm basically from India, and I'm a pharmacist. And right now, I'm doing my research in public health at the University of Wolverhampton. So I just got this, information about the Birmingham community of public health, about the kids' development. So I just wanted to inquire, like, how do I get in just to work with you guys?
Well,
just to promote the good child development.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have a conversation outside of the meeting. So what this so I've met with members of your team as well. It was Shireen Edwards-Dodd that kind of set this up to have that kind of conversation with the public health team. So it may be a good idea to kind of have a conversation with her. I know there's different aspects of public health, isn't there? And I don't know how much they interrelate. So she's a part of the built and natural environment team. Obviously, there's other aspects, other people in that team. Marion Gibbon, particularly, somebody they've connected with quite a lot. Joe Tonkin is also, kind of part of the conversations that we've been having. So I'm hoping after today I will follow up with Shireen to see how we follow on this conversation. And particularly the conversation around play in public space. So it may be a good opportunity for you to kind of connect with Shireen as well, so that we're keen to get it outside of the Springfield Project and to get more people involved in the conversation. Thank you there, Irene. It's good to have you with us.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
So we have a question here. Somebody asking about the indicators used to measure the impact of the project on children's health and well-being.
Okay, that's a very public healthy question. So what we haven't done yet is really kind of measure in terms of impact on children's health and well-being. We've had a lot of feedback from children and young people about taking part in our activities, which we collect on a kind of routine basis. So we can demonstrate that all the different activities that we put on and the things that we've been doing have a positive impact on children's emotional well-being and overall development in terms of social development, social interaction. So we do have quite a lot of kind of evidence on that, but that's program specific, if that makes sense. So children in our play scheme will kind of comment on particular things and what they've got out of the play scheme, and then we have particular measures for that group. Well, I haven't kind of pulled those things together to include it in this presentation. I probably should have, so apologies for that. So yeah, we are measuring that. We're measuring that very much through children and young people's feedback, the questions that we're asking them. If that makes sense. I don't think that answered the question very well, but yes, it's something we can perhaps collectively work on, how we present that.
Okay, Odion, you can ask your question. The question actually came from Odion. You can ask your question now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. So I have another question. So what are the plans that are in place to ensure sustainability and scalability of this project?
Yeah, that's always a challenge. Always a challenge in the voluntary sector. I know our colleague from National Lottery Reaching Communities is in the room, so I'm hoping that we will make another application for continuation funding. That would be great, because it's keeping that core team going is essential to really keep the momentum on this. And then we obviously are reliant on grant funding for different aspects of the work as well. It would be great to see some core investment in that universal core offer and that kind of neighbourhood level approach to play in public space and all of those things that we're talking about. At the moment, that doesn't exist, so we are reliant on grant funding and partnership working. But we're very up for that. It feels very positive. It feels like we've got some really good momentum here. It's great that you guys are all kind of interested in what we're saying, what we're doing. So we need to just build on those partnership approaches to things to see what we can sustain at Springfield, but also what we can do for children in other parts of the city based on what we've been doing. Again, if you put your hand up again, it's the same.
Yes, I have another question.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking, how would this project address health inequalities among children in Birmingham, particularly probably those from underserved or disadvantaged communities?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of evidence around freedom of movement, freedom in public space, access to outdoor play is inequalities issue. So if you live in a particular area of the city, you're going to have a lot less access to green space than if you live in other areas of the city. So that's a key part of it. I can see that Anthony has put something in the post really around Birmingham City of Nature plan. So there's organisations like that and others around have got lots of evidence around the inequalities of access to green space. So I think that's a really fundamental part of it. Yeah, and then I think a lot of that links also to play generally, obviously contributes to children being physically active, which will contribute to kind of obesity levels. It contributes to children's mental health, which will have an impact. So it impacts in a very broad sense on all aspects of child development. What I really try to steer away from, although I know obviously if you're from a health perspective, this is going to be really important, is to not narrow it down to play and access to public space. Is we were doing it because it's meeting this particular target. It's about obesity, or it's about something else. Actually, children should have a fundamental right to play in public spaces and should be able to be outside, safe, clean, green environments, because that's an automatic right of childhood. And we know that all of that contributes to health outcomes, but trying to then pin it down to health outcomes kind of turns the conversation around, if that makes sense. I know, we need to address some of those health outcomes and we need to be able to measure them. But I don't want that to be the starting point. I want children's access to free play to be the starting point. That makes sense. Trying to read some of those. Question. I like questions. Comment from Cemetery. Thank you. Yes, they want to be involved to bring some fun along. This is a really fun project to work on. It's really lovely. It is fun, but again, it is rooted in child development and that good understanding of what children need and want in their neighbourhoods. So Naomi's said, as a scout leader and parent of 2 teenagers, very interested in the topic of changing this perception. You mentioned that teenagers hanging about is a negative thing when they just need that time and space to do so. It's so positive that they connect in person. Any ideas how we could address this, facilitate young people in being happy too? Well, it's a really good question. I don't particularly have an answer. I think we need to have the conversations. We need to think about, who are our young people, where do they go? Where can they go where they are welcome and safe? And if those places don't exist, what can we do to give them those spaces? But also it's about how do adults perceive young people, but also recognising that we do have a problem. We do have a problem with youth violence. We do have a problem with some antisocial behaviour in a small number of young people. So it's not just saying this isn't an issue, we shouldn't be worried about it. We've got to be realistic. But all young people should have places to go where they are welcome and accepted and not seen as a problem. And that's the thing that we've got to tackle. There's a big dearth in youth provision. I know, I'm at this event with Birmingham Community Action Network, that some of those partners are youth providers. A lot of them aren't, but we're really keen to be. So we really need more youth provision across the city that look different in different places, depending on local need and local facilities. But we need a real investment in youth provision somehow. I don't know what the answer is, but we know that we need it. So we need to come together to think about what all the options are on there. Natalie's asked about the report from the community researchers. Yeah, absolutely. That's a report. I think I can share that with you, Natalie. Caroline's asking about supporting more safe, low supervised play. Park-based play monitors. Park-based play monitors would be great. That open access play is really, really important, with low level kind of adult presence, but not directing children's play. I think that's what we would love to see in our public and our parks. I know Birmingham Play Care Network do a lot of that. There's another organisation called Play in Parks. That's what they do. They are there, promoting play in parks. We'd love to get to a position where we didn't need anybody to do that, because children felt that parks were their places and they could do it anyway. But we do need that, because children and their parents, very importantly, don't feel that they're safe in public spaces. How we do that, how we get funding for that, Caroline, I don't know. Let's have a think and see if there is a way that we can do that. Caroline's also suggesting scope for communal hybrid play, including online digital play. Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm sure there is. It's certainly not my expertise, and I'm very keen that I'm not anti-technology in any way, but we all need variety in their lives, and children need to put their gadgets down, get outside, and learn to be in nature, learn to be free from their screens. So I think we need everything, don't we? yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to look at what that hybrid approach might look like.
Caroline wants to ask a question. Carol, you can ask your question, please. You're mute.
Sorry, yes. Sorry, just on that, I'm just wondering if there may be some tech funding available that, and I don't know too much about it, but I think there's been work in India around how children learn and interact, where they've put like a computer into a public space, and sometimes not even coded computers, and how children come together, work together, and make sense and build something collectively, and how enriching that is, because the value of that is from being together, and that interaction, even though it's around a digital device, it's not a digital device in a bedroom on your own abstractly. And I'm just, you know, there is a lot of tech funding available that, well, you know, and it may be possible to draw in some kind of private sector funding to try and test some of that kind of, you know, can people make an Xbox, you know, park friendly? Yeah, what's it go? You know, there have been various attempts, I think, around getting people outside with, you know, to track things. And there is a Dr. Bird who has done some public health work in this space. So it's just, I mean, I'll try and pull it out and send it over to you. But I do think it may be another avenue.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Caroline, that we can follow that conversation up offline really and see if there is anything. There must be, you know, people that have thought about this and experts out there that we can draw on. I'm just conscious of the time. It is 1 minute to 1 o'clock. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. The session has been recorded, so you know, feel free to share it with your colleagues, bring other people into the conversation. And I look forward to kind of following up with some of you and with the Public Health Department about some of these conversations. Thank you very much. That's it from me. Thank you.
Sorry, Sarah, somebody asked about the availability of the slides. Will it be made
Yes, we can send the
available?
slides out as well. I'll send them to you in Monica, and you can send them on if that's okay.
Lovely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help, Monica.
You're welcome. It was a really good section. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll send the slides over to you if you can send those on to people.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.